Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. Um, so first, I think the session has been delayed slightly, and I was requested, specifically a request also came that we keep this as crisp and short as possible. So let me try and do that. So the session that we are going to discuss today is on a sector which there is a in terms of potential, there is immense potential, but in terms of how much has it been tapped, especially by the startup ecosystem, I would say there is still a lot of opportunities. And maybe would even say that it's not been given the kind of attention that it actually deserves. We specifically focus our discussions today on Kerala and the agri sector in Kerala. And as many of you would know, Kerala's agricultural ecosystem is also, like if I were to quickly give you an overview, it's like has its own, challenges that it needs to face. Firstly, being the climate variation, fragmented land holdings, rising input costs, and most importantly, we have most of our farmers, when I say farmers, the people that are actually engaged in farming, the age group of that population is actually over 50, 55. So what happens to the next generation? What happens to the lands that have been cultivated by these farmers? And added to that, Kerala is also very different from the rest of the country in the sense the farming is not on staples, but rather on cash crops. Coconut and rubber primarily, followed by spices and the typical plantation crops as we call it. But again, the strength of Kerala is also the fact that we have a very strong policy framework. We have access to global information and also a very vibrant startup ecosystem that could really help transform the sector. The need of the hour is to build a sustainable, scalable, and a technology-led model here. And I think nothing better than the panel that we have here, because we have the combination of the best of minds in the sector. So we have the leadership from the leadership that actually formulates the policy framework, the policy and regulatory framework for the sector. We have NABARD, which typically kind of, brings together the financial and the farmer inclusion. And we have Ravi and Amdo from the World Bank to give the global insights on competitiveness as well as digital adoption. And now, without much ado, let me just proceed to the panel. And I would actually keep, like I said earlier, trying to keep this as simple as possible. Just, have a set of questions for the panelists. And, from there on, we can take it from there. So my first question is to Dr. B. Ashok. Sir, in your opinion, how do you think our policy framework, and especially the new initiatives like the KERA projects, create the right environment for the state from an agri perspective and also for the startups to integrate their innovations into mainstream agriculture, especially in building or strengthening climate resilient value chains?
Thank you for your question. Chair and panelists, very happy to be again with Huddle, possibly its 7th edition. To answer your question, I will limit myself to how we are looking at technology, particularly digitalization, in improving prospects of agriculture for Kerala. I'll limit it very briefly. As you rightly said, Kerala is a cash crop county. Okay. So in 22, what has happened in the national management system for agriculture is to rely a lot more on data than it used to be. And agriculture management is highly data intensive, both for staples as well as cash crops. And data for agriculture, like the rest of government data, the joke we have privately is that if you torture it adequately, it would confess to anything. The degree of torture will determine the confession. the valency of conversion of data. So typically agriculture bureaucracies would, if you are asked as to, we spent X crores on rice and how is your rice performing in the field, invariably it will give a fantastic buoyancy. So that used to be, data used to be, so Government of India decided to fix it and we have followed our own model, which is called Katir KKH, farm registry by. Idea is very simple, count the farmers accurately, count the acreage of land and water resources the farmers have accurately, count the crops as they are sown and taken through their productive cycle and harvested accurately. Because a lot of the agriculture market depends upon these three registries. How many farmers are there? For example, if you ask me this question, how many farmers are there in Kerala? It's a difficult call to take. Depending on your definition, it can be 15, 20 or 38 lakhs. But let me stick to 38 because PM Kisan registries. When this question was put to Keralites as to how many of you are eligible for the PM Kisan benefits, 38 lakh people were interested. And 28 lakhs succeeded in establishing their credentials with KYC, etc. So how many farmers are there in Kerala? For me, it is 28 lakhs now. Okay, right. 2.8 million. Now, the next puzzle for me to manage the agriculture system will be, I will have to count how much of land. Forget your hydroponics and protected agriculture. Land is basic and is a basic input and factor of productivity there. So I have to count the quality of land and how it is put to use. So I need to count all the land parcels where agriculture is practiced, distinguish them by their boundary through digital means. That puzzle is solved now because I am able to mark all the boundaries. I don't have to depend on any report by an agricultural officer or human eye. The satellites give you 15-day-old data as to what amount of land parcels are. I have problems there because the land registry part as to which land is synced with which owner is a matter which only the revenue department knows, their database knows. And land gets mutated in the sense I am selling to him, he is selling to me. So you can become a non-farmer overnight, right? You are PM Kisan beneficiary, but you may sell or partition your 5 acres and cease to be a farmer. So my system should capture how the land registry shifts the ownership and sync it automatically. I should know when somebody becomes a non-farmer, when somebody becomes a farmer. The third part of the issue is that I have to sync it with your resurvey that happens in the state, digital resurvey. The trouble is, the systems would want geo-verified maps to be inlaid to understand it real time. I need to tag. Somebody has to be on the field, cross-check the satellite data and send a message up through the back. So that's also, so there I have a problem because as you know, digital resurvey is done only for about 40% of Kerala's villages. So we will take some more time to reach there. So these milestones are being achieved. I'll simply add to this that we have invested, as I said last time, about 30 crores between us and NABARD to have a state-specific software ecosystem, a suite of operations, about 23 of them, developed on commercial basis and now handled by the Capco, which is of great interest to tech entrepreneurs. Please take a look at Katir. Out of the 28 lakh farmers who are qualified to be farmers, I have got 14 lakhs on my Katir app, which is a very big number. For more than 50, I know 50% of my farmers buy their, whatever is the personal registry, what they do with their land, as well as what they do with my crops. Now I come to the question which is of interest to the tech entrepreneurs. I need you to get, as Mr. Chaturvedi was saying, the complementary market onto this ecosystem. And that is going to change the way the Kerala's producer is going to be able to buy the inputs as well as sell his output. If the system helps him, as he very rightly put, the cheapest, cost-effective inputs, most effective seeds and input material, and fetch the highest price, the system could catapult him to a higher level. I'll stop this here, and maybe I can comment later. Thank you.
So just to continue, so the Katir app adoption is really impressive with more than 50% already registered on that. So do you, in your opinion, you still feel that there are way more opportunities like this where the younger startups could associate with the department and kind of add value?
Totally, because take an example like Mr. Anumala's sector, banking. We have not got traction on that, but we displayed the entire application to the bankers, retail bankers. In fact, now what does a bank do when you apply for credit, agriculture credit? It's a de novo process, like you start filling a form saying that you are Raman, your father is Prakashan, and so on and so forth, and start, whether on software or digital platform, the entire data has to be regurgitated. So for a farmer who is already on the platform, it's verified data. So the bank only needs to ask its local man or the agricultural officer to please authenticate the data. It's already authenticated, it will be re-authenticated. And the man qualifies for credit on the basis of the land owned, the digital data registry, technically in 15 minutes time, but banks can dispense credit in 7 days if you decide so. A process which would take close to a month at the fastest, practically at the moment. So bankers, again, credit is a very important input. Just as the same as the system progresses, all input sales, fertilizers, pesticides, all sorts of agro machinery can get incorporated and create a very vibrant secondary marketplace. So we are looking, at the moment it is held between NAPCON's 50% share and Capco 50% of interest on the commercial side. We are looking very open-mindedly to tech developers, marketers who will help us improve that sort of last mile onto business. So all of you are welcome. Those who are interested to view it in our premises, my people are here. So they would organize demos and see whether you can get, I don't know, I'm not a technologist, complementary softwares which pitch it to the next level, if I can put it that way. We welcome that opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for those insights. My next question is to Amdo. So, taking on from what Ashok sir said, see, from a global competitiveness perspective, what do you think would be the key reforms and interventions that would need to happen in Kerala additionally to kind of build this, resilient, global ready, value chain thing?
Thank you very much, Anand, for this very difficult question. Very difficult question because we see many reforms, and we have been supporting many reforms across the globe. And it's very difficult to be selective, especially in Kerala here, where you mentioned in the introductory speech that there is a strong policy framework with all the instruments, all the type of reforms that are needed to strengthen the value chains. But
if I may, just 1 second, for the benefit of the audience, could you also probably give a brief of what you have done with the other, other geographies outside of India?
That's what I was about to say. I have been at the World Bank for the past 20 years, 25 years. That was my first job. I've been there for many years. And it's really a privilege for me to be here. And I really would like to thank KESAM. I would like to thank Dr. Ashok and his team, because we have been partnering with the preparation of this KERA project for the last 3 years. So it's now a privilege for me to be here, and I would like to thank you really officially. I was here about 2-3 months ago on a mission as part of this KERA project, and I met with the KESAM team. They told me, by the way, because you are interested in startups, do you know that we are organizing an event which is called Hurdle? I said, really? I never heard about hurdles. Is it really a big event? They told me, you should just come and see. 2 months later, I came, and I'm really impressed. I'm impressed because I attended and I participated to many events around the world, meeting with startups, meeting with entrepreneurs and the private sector in general. But I never seen this kind of energy. You can hear the energy outside of this door, which is really a pleasure. And I understand why Kerala is globally, actually no, by the way. Earlier this morning, the Chief Minister was saying, you need to help us, you need to help us spread the word. This is very important for us as the World Bank, because I learn a lot during this event here. What we learn here in Kerala will be spread around the world, as the Chief Minister is requesting. So around the world, we have been financing projects in all sectors, strengthening, more specifically, agriculture value chains. across all segments of the value chains. Now, Adnan, the reason why I tell you it's very difficult to respond is the World Bank group is very opportunistic. We respond to the need of the client. So there is no set in stone list of reforms. It depends on the context. And before you provide the reforms that are needed for the specific sector or the specific value chain, you need to do that assessment. So that's what we do across the world. We start with a very comprehensive assessment to identify the binding constraint and focus on them. But Anand, what I would like to do, if possible, because when I spoke to many startups, and many of them, I actually realized that the World Bank Group and the IFC, which is part of the group, is not known very well by the startups. So just maybe 30 seconds to explain what is the World Bank Group, so that maybe the startup will hopefully reach out and will explore opportunity to partner. World Bank Group created about 80 years ago, after the World War II, mainly focusing on reconstruction and development of countries at that time. Very quickly it has evolved because the world was evolving. And I would like to say here, because it's more relevant for what we are doing here today, we have created the sister organization of the World Bank, which is called the International Finance Corporation, IFC. And IFC is really the agency or the organization within the World Bank Group that is of interest to you, because they do invest in private companies. They do invest in startups. And really, they provide all sorts of financing instruments that are needed for startups, for private companies in general to grow. I will say they do almost everything in terms of financing, except what I just heard right before us, angel investors. As the gentleman was saying, it's a very risky niche. It's most of the time product to be tested, and they are very risky. That's the reason why IFC is not at that space. But, and I think one of the gentlemen said, we do finance a lot venture capital, and venture capital usually co-invests with angel investors. So we are definitely in partnership with angel investors who venture capital. Now, what I want to say now on the World Bank, and I'm part of the World Bank. I'm not IFC, I'm part of the World Bank. At the IFC, we work a lot on policy framework, policy and legal framework, because this is basically the foundation of an ecosystem to grow. The reason why Kerala is doing so well, of course there's always room for improvement, is because you have very clear leadership at all levels, and you have a very clear legal and policy framework. And I heard this morning, I saw somewhere in the notes, that there is an MSME Act. And believe me, you don't have many countries or many states where you have MSME Act, which basically helps you define very clearly what is an MSME and what are their rights. Because if you don't have a clear view of those two elements, it's very difficult to have targeted policy, specifically on the agricultural chain. On our side, on the World Bank, on the policy and legal side, we have been supporting MSME Act. But now, more specifically for startups, we realize that we need something a little bit more specific. And we are increasingly supporting the elaboration and the preparation of startup acts, which is again more specific than MSME. And this actually helps you have some legal clarity. Again, what is the definition of a startup? What are their rights? How do they access fiscal incentive? This is the second element that you see in startup acts. How do they access public funding and public procurement? And our colleague, our gentleman this morning from Dubai, the CEO of Future AI, was saying, for this startup that they are supporting at the beginning, they make sure, and it's in the law, that those startups benefit from contract from the government. So there is a percentage of public procurement that are reserved for startups. Because if you don't have that market, as a startup, it's very difficult to grow. And the last thing that I would like to say as a very important pillar that you usually see in startup acts, good practice startup acts across the world, is everything related to talent. And again, during the discussion previously, we heard about the importance of having access to the talent, access to skills. Yesterday, there was a very interesting discussion on skills and talent. I think I don't need to go to it, but one of the issues that we have usually Maybe less in India because you have a huge pool of talent that you can see here. But in some of the countries where we see you have startups with good idea, but there are areas of expertise that they are missing. And it's very difficult for them to bring the talent in the country because of visa issue. You need some special visa for those type of expertise that you need to bring in the country and be able to contribute. I said that the question was very difficult because we can talk about the whole set of reform that we usually support, but just know that the World Bank is very opportunistic and demand-driven. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amdo. And I think the info that you spoke about IFC, right, that hopefully should help a lot of people here. So thank you for that. So my next question is to Ravi, because based on what we have heard so far, so there are projects which are funded by the World Bank, and I know typically the bank requires a lot of, let's say, practices, trust frameworks and stuff like that in place from a vendor if they need to be onboarded for that project, right? So keeping this in mind, what would your advice be to the startups that are looking to tap into the agricultural ecosystem, especially on the larger projects like what Sir said about Kera, say, where they would like to participate? So there would be certain, digital infrastructure standards and trust frameworks that you might have in mind which they need to follow to kind of, get them onboarded. Can you just, throw some light on that for our benefit, please?
Sure, thank you. And what a terrific event here. Really glad to be here today. So I'm going to interpret your question slightly, a bit more broadly, and then look at what needs to happen in the ecosystem for agriculture to truly turn into agribusiness. So, because it can't just be startups alone. There are several, aspects that need to fall in place here. So, let's start with what Mr. Ashok said. I'm going to, in my head, I need to convert lakhs and millions, so I'm going to use millions. So it is 3.8 million farmers or 2.8, depending on how you count it. And the Khatir app, which I had the great privilege of, receiving a walkthrough yesterday, pretty phenomenal. 1.4 million, 14 lakh farmers already use the Khatir app, so that's close to 50% if your denominator is 2.8 million, or 40-ish%, if it is 3.8 million. That's very good. I mean, I can think of several countries, several states in India that would kill to have that, that level of, shall we say, penetration among the farmer community. So that's sort of one. I think that's really good. We also heard that, in peak season, which is, harvest season, I guess, activity on that app or the Khatir app tends to be about 50%. And in lean season, it drops to about 10%. Now, obviously, so on one hand, I think, it's important for the app ecosystem to understand the farmer's own sort of, life cycle and build content around it. So first challenge for, I think, this app here is how do you take that, activity level from 50 up to 70 to 80%. Now, Kerala is, this state that we're in is incredibly fortunate, right? I mean, you have what I would call probably the most overeducated population in the country. So even the farmers are incredibly educated, which is true. I mean, the struggles that several other states, and I won't name names, go through is basic literacy. You don't have that challenge with your farmers, right? I mean, so you give them an app, I mean, they know how to use it, which is a big plus. So my push to Kera, I mean, I know Khatir started before the Kera project even happened. My first push would be, how can that 50% go up to 80%? So that's sort of point one. The second is, how do you take activity up from 10% in lean season up to 50 to 60%? And that is where creating content for farmers. So, obviously there is time-sensitive content, which is around planting season, harvesting time, et cetera, is time-sensitive content. And then there is other general content, to make our farmers smarter, right? So that kind of content should be given to them during lean season so they can consume it a bit like Netflix, where you want it, when you want it, how you want it, right? So that kind of content. So to those of you who are here, and obviously all of that, there needs to be one source of truth. What you don't want your farmers, you don't want your farmers to get their knowledge and advisory from TikTok or Instagram. You want one source of truth that the government can stand behind, right? So the Kerala Agricultural University stands behind all the advice that is given. But that doesn't mean the Kerala Agricultural University has to produce all the content. So those of you here in the startup community, and I'm going to connect each one of these to what could the startup community do? Build that content in collaboration with the university to feed it to farmers, how they want it, when they want it, where they want it. Let's look at ways in which you can take that 10% activity during lean season up to 50 or 60%. A smart farmer means better food on your plates, right? So think about it. So that's one sort of push. The second push that I would, again, on the Khatir app, again, it's a state-driven initiative. That, the one big area, and if you were to kind of think about this as Khatir 1.0, I would nudge the entire ecosystem to think about a Khatir 2.0. A Khatir 2.0 would be building the market linkage. Mr. Ashok, alluded to it. We were having this conversation over lunch, which is, while on advisory, you want one source of truth, right? I mean, like I said a little while ago, you don't want your farmers getting planting information from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. But on market information, you want multiple, you want your farmers to have choices. Can they, why should they have only 2, vendors to get their tractor services from? Why can't there be 30, right? Why can't they, again, so if we all have options, I mean, I know you have only 2 options here and one airline did not work for all of last week, but generally we have more options. Why shouldn't the farmer have options? So on the one hand, can we build more options in the marketplace, right? For all the inputs that farmers need, can we create choice? So that is another area where the startup, the bridge between the government and startups should kick in. The other is on the other side where the farmer is selling their output to. So you want, ideally, like all of us, our input cost should be the lowest, so the farmer should have more options, for all the inputs that they need in their farming cycle. And then they should have more options on who they can sell to. If there's only one person they can sell to, be it the government or, the only game in town, they would get the lowest price. But if they have multiple buyers, they have more choice. So these kind of market linkages would be the 2.0. And that 2.0 cannot happen without some active collaboration between the government and the startup ecosystem. And what my colleague Amadou just said, which is referring to the speaker from Dubai in the morning, is this is where the government, look, if there are 3 options, and what did he say? It was IBM, Microsoft, and Redbus or whatever it is. Give the Redbus an opportunity. And this, I'm looking at people here who can be, who can create any number of products and services that farmers need. So that is the market linkage that needs to happen. So that is how you build a truly robust infrastructure and turn agriculture from, being dependent on the state to truly an agri-business that, is a viable business. So I'll pause there.
I think that was very, very insightful, and I hope the audience has also kind of, got, especially those who are in agri-tech or those who wish to venture into agri-tech. Now that brings me to the next question to Mr. Nagesh. See, one of the things that we had, agriculture being, again, a very traditional sector and NABARD being one of the oldest ecosystem enablers, one of the things which from our, from the Kerala context is also the entire risk, because this is a very conservative sector. How is tech adoption going to happen? Who will bear the risk? Both from the farmer standpoint and from a startup standpoint also. So startups are more kind of, worried about how the tech adoption, how would the financial model work? Similarly, from the farmer side, how is the tech going to really be helpful? So there is always that, that kind of a gray area where they are not, the risk-taking ability is also not there, be it from the startup side or be it from the farmer side. So that is where could NABARD probably from a, champion any initiatives, or I don't know if you're already doing it, but then look at models where, digital intervention and financial inclusion to a certain extent de-risk these startups and also empower the, SHGs or the FPOs to kind of adopt tech at scale. So this would really propel the, the segment itself to a next level, right? So just wanted to hear your views on this, Nagesh.
Good question, Anand. First of all, thank you for inviting me to Huddle Global. What I say is innovation drives the economy, and the recent Nobel Prize winners 2025, they have reinforced this aspect. So technology innovation drives the economy, and agriculture is not an exception to that. So we need to adopt to technology. Now, how to de-risk? Because any new technology or any new innovation, the risk is inherited. So we have to de-risk the risk. So nowadays, from over a period of time, we are doing a lot of interventions to de-risk the entire ecosystem for adoption of new technologies, new innovations in agriculture. I'll just highlight some of what NABARD is doing. One is rural business incubation centers. So NABARD is supporting rural business incubation centers. Across India, we have supported 10 incubation centers, mainly in agriculture universities and similar institutions, and one in Kerala Agriculture University. So far, more than 1,500 innovators, they have incubated in these RBICs, and 471 startups, they graduated. By the time a startup leaves a RBIC, it is field tested and creditable. So the first, we are de-risking, incubating the ideas. So this makes easier for banks and investors to support them. The second intervention, what NABARD is doing is Catalytic Capital Fund. It is a grant again. So after incubation, the startups often struggle to move to the market. So there is in management jargon known as valley of death. So they have to cross this phase, the valley of death, before fully bankers can come and forward to provide credit. So to address this, NABARD created a catalytic capital fund, and it supports the startups that already have a prototype or a minimum viable product. So in the last year, we have supported 4 crores given to 17 startups. This fund helps the startups become a market ready and attract further investment. It reduces early commercial risk. And the third stage, we have a fully owned NAV Ventures. It is a subsidiary owned by NABARD, NAV Ventures. It supports venture capital. It has both NAV Ventures, which is created by our own fund, and one AgriSure fund. It is NABARD and Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So NABARD, this venture fund gives fund of funds and also to direct to investors. It focuses on high impact areas like value addition, rural infrastructure, machinery services, and IT solutions. So this kind of a patient capital is very important, especially when startups work with FPOs, when returns take time. The fourth intervention is rural smart village centers, because any technology adoption finally happens at the village level. So they allow farmers and communities to see, test, and use the new technology, because farmers are not aware about these technologies. So these rural smart village centers, where farmers can test and they can see these new technologies, they will be familiar with these technologies, then if they require, they will adopt. So these centers demonstrate machinery, digital advisory tools, and bookkeeping systems and they also serve as service and repair centers. So this builds a trust among the farmers and reduces the cost for startups also. This is how we are distressing the entire ecosystem. And technology cannot be adopted at an individual level. This has to be adopted at a scale. So we are promoting FPOs, Farmers Producers Organizations. So it scales through strong institutions like FPOs. And NABARD has long supported FPOs through formation, governance, management, and equity support. So it also implements the central scheme for promoting 10,000 FPOs, and strong FPOs reduce the risk for lenders and also startups. And they became reliable and collect to customers for technology. This is what I want.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I think we've just kind of run out of time. So I think more of closing, I guess this is probably the best panel we could have got, because we have the policymakers, we have the ecosystem enablers, and we also have the, typically the mentors who give global insight on the sector. So once again, thank you to Kerala Startup Mission for organizing this panel. Sir.
One word, those who are interested, those tech entrepreneurs who are interested to explore opportunity with Capco, please find the website of Capco, KABCO, and establish your contact. You are welcome anytime to meet with the team. Just fix up an email appointment and we can develop this conversation over there.
Fantastic. And so there you go. You've heard from the man himself. So I think make use of this opportunity, and once again, thank you, and thank you all.